Again, thank you for showing up tonight. I expect this to be a candid conversation about politics in Connecticut, changes that we advocates and activists are trying to make, and what are some of the barriers and challenges that we face in trying to transform Connecticut into a place where, especially around Department of Corrections, which Stop Solitary does a lot of. Sorry, my name is Barbara Fair, and I'm part of Stop Solitary Connecticut, for those who don't know. And so I do a lot of investment in trying to transform prisons into places where people are treated more humanely. And in doing so, we started out with trying to end isolation because of all the psychological harm it does to people. Sometimes people never recover from it. My son is an example of one of those people that's 17 years old being placed in the Supermax. And for those who don't know, after the harm that was done to him at the age of 17, I vowed I was not going to rest until Northern was shut down. And Northern got shut down a couple of years ago. And so I'm grateful for that, but I live with all the broken parts of my son after being in that place. So this is a journey I'm never going to be off, because I think not only about my son, but I think about all the other sons and daughters, and some as young as 14 years old, who are sitting behind bars and being mistreated and tortured. And there's not a lot of people out here fighting this fight. And that's what makes it that much harder for us. And so I have brought on some people that I know are really champions for marginalized people in our community. And so I'm hoping to have a very candid conversation with them. Everybody who knows me know I'm not afraid to call a spade a spade. I don't care about being like that. I'm not looking for any brownie points, none of that. This is about how do we make Connecticut a place where people are treated like human beings. They're not coming out of those prison systems broken, and then the community has to live with that. So I'm going to start off with on my left, former state representative Robyn Porter. Thank you. And then next to her is former chief public defender Tashun Bowen Lewis. And then next to her is attorney Ken, I kill your name every time, Krayeske. And we're just waiting for one more person, another powerful person in Connecticut, attorney Alex Taubes, and he'll be here any minute. So I want to start the conversation off with each person saying just a couple of minutes, because we are really falling behind, but just give me a couple of minutes give the audience a couple of minutes about who you are and this work. You want to start with Ken?
Hello. Hi. My name is Ken Krayeske. I am a civil rights attorney. I was on my own in practice for 9.5 years, and about 2.5 years ago, I joined a firm called BBB Attorneys. And I would note before that I was a journalist for a while. I studied magazine journalism, and I decided in about 2004, the collapse of the American news industry left this writer with very few career options in law school, as being training you to write. Being a lawyer is a professional writer, and that's what I do. It's a very solitary job. You spend a lot of time writing and reading and going over stuff. So I fell into I was doing civil rights work, but I sort of fell into correctional medicine because attorney Devon Ward and I went to UConn Law together, and Ward called me up and he said, Krayeske, I got a case. And it was the case of Wayne World. And the state was offering Wayne $60,000, and he didn't have any lawyers. And Devon was like, there's something here. But Devon had never practiced in federal court. And I had significant federal experience, and he's like, show me what's going on. How do we do this? So I joined up with him, and we settled Wayne's case for $1.3 million. And unfortunately, Wayne died. He had a cutaneous T-cell lymphoma of an aggressive subtype that was not diagnosed until he was a stage 4A. And one of the doctors at DOC said, I've been a doctor for 26 years. I know psoriasis. This is psoriasis. It wasn't. And that's the kind of arrogance and the mistreatment that people who are incarcerated face when they're getting health care. And since then, I've done well more than a dozen or two cases about health care in prisons and other prisoners' rights issues. And so that's how I come at this.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Again, my name is Tashun Bowden Lewis, and I was a career public defender. I'd been with the Public Defender Division here in Connecticut for almost 30 years. The culmination of my career was in 2022, and I was appointed Connecticut's first Black Chief Public Defender.
Wow.
Thank you. But I was terminated in 2024. And I know many of you have seen the articles, that saw my hearings and things of that nature, and know the story and know what really happened with what I was trying to do. Because obviously, as the chief, I was trying to rebuild the relationship between the community and the public defenders. Because, there's a lot of mistrust and between public defenders and communities, and with more of a community focus, to be about the clients, respect dignity for the clients, not just a file that you have on, on Elm Street. It was in diversifying our entire division. But it doesn't stop there. So I was terminated in 2024, and I started my own consulting and coaching firm in 2024 as well. So now that's what I do full time, but I have always been for true boots on the ground activism and for the communities. We all know that those who are incarcerated in Connecticut and other states as well too are primarily Black and brown. And it was very important for the Public Defenders Division to actually reflect some of that, and not just because of their color, but because of their actual merit, because they had what it took to actually advocate, but also to relate to the clientele. So I am always an advocate, always for the community, and in my new role now as a consultant and coach, I still do the same thing, but no longer for the Division of Public Defender Services, but now for myself. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you. Thank you. And just a little footnote before Representative Robyn gets on. This is what they do in Connecticut. They put the first Black in position to do a job, and when you do the job that you're supposed to do and you don't toe the line, you get terminated. That's what they do here. So
more like assassinated. Yeah. State rep, former state rep. I'm gonna always be a state rep. For the 94th district, which was Southern Hampton and New Haven. I served as an elected official in that capacity for 10 years, 8 months, and 10 days. And I sat on the Judiciary Committee, Appropriations, and I chaired the Labor Committee for 6 years, and I also sat on Human Services for 1 session. And my thing has always been Porter for the people. That's the mantra. That's what I stand for. You know, the work was never, I won't say it wasn't personal, because it was, Full disclosure, I have a son that was formerly incarcerated. And I was elected, and that really did thrust me into this judicial work that I've been blessed to stand 10 toes down with this matriarchal queen here on the stage, Miss Barbara Fair. Yes, give it up for her, because I tell you, a lot of what we have been able to get done and are still being able to get done, and I was actually ear hustling while the good old ombudsman was down here talking to her. He was actually giving her credit tonight for bills that are moving in the legislature this session. This work is exhausting. It will kill you. And you have to be careful. You have to strike a balance. And that was part of the reason why I decided to come out, because when you go in and do the work like I did it, 10 toes down, unbossed, unapologetic, all of that, yeah, you catch hell. There is a noose that gets thrown around your neck, and every chance they get, they're trying to hang you. They sabotage you. They undermine you. But what I will say is this: I am a woman of faith. I understood my assignment, and I stood in my faith, knowing that if God sent me in that building, whatever needed to be done would get done regardless to what was coming at me. And that's actually how it went. You know, I'm blessed and tremendously humbled at the work I was able to do under that kind of pressure. $15 minimum wage, landmark legislation, a 14-hour debate on the floor that started at 10 p.m. that night and ended the following day, that afternoon, with little to no help. Like, I was really left to do that on my own because they didn't want that bill to go. Paid family medical leave, you know, another landmark piece of legislation that I was able to champion and debate on the floor. And when we look at criminal justice and juvenile justice, I co-chaired the subcommittee of education on the Juvenile Justice Policy Oversight Committee, which we call JPOC, and was able to get a lot of stuff done around education for the youth that are justice impacted in this state. Another criminal justice policy that I'm really proud of was, I was shocked when I first started doing this work to learn that women who are incarcerated in this state were actually shackled during labor and delivery. I'm a mom, and I know doggone well you don't need to shackle nobody during labor and delivery because you're not going anywhere. So I was able to get policy passed where we eradicated that and brought that to an end, and have really been working earnestly to make sure that we bring humanity, and I can't even say back, just bring humanity into this so that people are treated humanely, and that they're not dehumanized, not disrespected. And it's not just the impact of the incarcerated people in that population. It is their family and their friends. I did time. I'm justice impacted. I was physically able to go in and come out, right? My son wasn't. But the family suffers as well. And I think if we're really talking about rehabilitation and restorative justice, then we have to do the real work. And we can't do this fluff stuff. We've got to stop with the deals that get cut in these back rooms. We have to stop with watering down legislation. We have to start saying that we're going to do what's right. There's no compromise in doing what's right. And there's just so many mantras in the building that, just don't make sense. I would say to me, but I would imagine they don't make sense to you either. I mean, is there any compromise in doing what's right? Isn't it always the right time to do the right thing?
Yep.
So why when I get to the table, your first thing to me is that I'm going to have to compromise in order to get the votes on the other side of the aisle? We don't need votes on the other side of the aisle. We are the majority. And if we stick together and use our collective power, we can move this state in ways that no other state is moving right now. Connecticut has the power to do that. So I'm going to stop there because I could go on and on about this political machine and how it really works. But I'm sure we'll cover a lot of this during the panel. So thank you all for being here, and thank you, Ms. Barbara, for the honor of being on this panel tonight.
I'm honored. And last but not least, Attorney Alex Taubes.
Thank you so much, Barbara, for having me here. I'm honored to sit on a panel with some of my heroes here, Attorney Krayeske, Attorney Bowden Lewis, Representative Porter, people who have really dedicated themselves to service in our community and who have really brought about a high level of excellence in their work. I try to model myself after these people to my left, so I'm very proud to be sitting here. My name's Alex Taubes. I'm a civil rights lawyer and appeals attorney in New Haven, and my work centers on challenging policies and practices that strip dignity from people, whether they be correctional policies and practices, police, or corporate. We look at these things and we bring lawsuits. I also help prisoners with sentence reduction motions and commutations. I represent people in criminal cases. And with Ken and Representative Porter and Attorney Bowden Lewis, I push for transparency and for justice and for accountability. I just actually got a text message from a client of mine, and it made me smile because he had been for the last 22 days, he was being held in ICE detention, despite the fact that a judge had ordered him be released. ICE kept him there, and when we look at everything that's been done to exclude or silence some of the great advocates who we have here and also people who are not here, just remember that their greatest weapon is fear. So be proud in who you are and have the courage of your convictions. Remember who you are, because if they cannot make you afraid, then they cannot have that power over you.
That's right.
And you can persevere.
Thank you. I want to ask each one of you, if you can, in a minute maybe, to answer this question, and we'll start with Ken. Because you're so involved in the work that goes on in Connecticut around criminal justice, can you tell me, do you have any faith in this system ever changing in Connecticut?
So we, I think, are able to make little incremental changes. Mm-hmm. And once in a while, you step in shit, pardon my French, and you get lucky because all of the stars align, like with the hepatitis C class action. We found a plaintiff, we had a cause of action, and we forced the DOC to spend $40 million and test 20,000 people and treat 1,000 people for hepatitis C. If I ever get to do anything like that in my legal career again, I'll consider myself extraordinarily lucky. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things, but like that was 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I'm still getting the same cases, and they're not. I have a client here tonight named Glenn London. Glenn, would you stand up in the back for a second, please? Barbara, can Glenn talk now for a second?
Yeah. Thank you.
Glenn, I'd like Glenn to tell us, this is the same call that I get once a week, whether it's the cancer that Glenn's about to describe, or the torn ACL, or the brain bleed, or the aneurysm, or, we have Tanisha. I'm representing Tanisha as the representative of the estate of James Henderson Hill, who had a brain aneurysm that exploded because DOC refused to treat it, and he died. And litigation is an ineffective tool, except once in a while when you get really lucky, and I think Mr. McGuire would say the same thing. It's so difficult. Like, what are we going to do? But Glenn, will you just tell us a minute what you're going through and what?
Yeah, if he could come up to the front and get on the mic so everyone can hear.
I'll step down. So I get phone calls all the time from people in prison who have the most terrible stories. And generally, Devon and I used to have a rule. We're only taking your case if you're dead or if you gave birth in a prison cell, because anything less doesn't pay. But I've been looking for a case with somebody who is alive, who is an excellent spokesperson for, Glenn, come up here so you can, who's an excellent spokesperson for their cause. And Glenn is one such person.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I first would like to stop and thank Stop Solitary Connecticut for having me here. My attorney, Kenneth Rakowski, for the opportunity to share a brief account of my horrific experience I endured while incarcerated at Bridgeport Correctional Facility in 2023. In January, during my intake with the medical staff, I informed them that I had been seen at the VA Medical Center for urinating blood. My discharge instructions were clear: to follow up with the urologist for a possible bladder mass. I asked to see the doctor at Bridgeport, and I never had the opportunity to see the doctor. Fast forward to March, the bleeding worsened, and when I finally saw the doctor there, she told me to drink water. Days later, I was in court, and I pleaded with the judge to allow the marshals to take me to the ER, in which they did transfer me from the court to the ER, and I was discharged with instructions to follow up with the urologist within 2 weeks. Now, mind you, this was March. Never happened. April, I went back to court again, got transferred from court to the ER. Then I was discharge instruction that follow up with urologist within 48 hours. And again, that didn't happen either. I then was transferred to Carl Robinson because I was sentenced. And while I was at Carl Robinson, the doctor there rushed me to Yukon Medical Center, where they found a bladder mass the size of a golf ball within inside of me. After the, I'm sorry. After they did the biopsy, they diagnosed me with stage 3A cancer. So they had to aggressively give me treatment, chemotherapy, and they removed the bladder. And then after they shrunk the cancer cells, they then in turn scheduled me for an operation to where they removed my bladder, my prostate, my lymph nodes. It was a 9-hour operation that I had to endure. And from this point, I have to now wear a urology bag, which is connected to me now, and it really affected my life, my lifestyle, the way I pick up my grandchild, and what have you. And I'm going to end with this because I know I only have 2 minutes, and I just want guys just to imagine that you were walking your dog, or if you have a cat, and while you're walking your dog, he urinates and you see blood come out. Or if you look in your kitten's litter box and you see blood spots, what would you do? Immediately take him to the vet. They wouldn't even offer me the same at Bridgeport Correctional that you would do for your pet. Thanks for letting me speak.
Well, thank you for sharing your story.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it is one of so many that are unheard, but you have representation now, and I'm sure things are going to go a little bit better for you and your family. But to answer your question, Ms. Barbara, yes, I do have faith, but I think most of us know that faith without works is dead.
That's right.
And so it's going to take more than talking. There's so many panel discussions, so many gatherings of everybody in the communities and everything else. It happens all the time. And it's good while we're here, but nothing comes of it. Nothing, there's no action. There's a plan that's mapped out. There's something that's talked about, and there's steps that are alluded to. But unless there are some definitive steps executing and implementing a true plan, then no, it won't. But my faith is strong. I do believe that. I'm born and raised in Connecticut. This is my home. I am an attorney. That's my life. But I've seen a lot.
Yeah.
And it is in contradiction to what I'm saying right now. So I do hope that tonight, this will be a different kind of a gathering, a different kind of discussion, a different kind of meeting, that there will be some true action, some true work that comes out of this. Clearly, Ms. Barbara has done a lion's share of work here in the state and has moved mountains, and we applaud you for that. But there's so much more to do, and all of you, all of us here, have a part to play in that. It doesn't take an attorney or a congressperson. It takes people to really do it. So my faith is strong, but we need to work.
Well, I'm going to second that motion. Faith without works is definitely dead. And I absolutely believe that there is hope. I believe that there's more than hope. I believe that this work can be done and not have to be done incrementally. I had to tell you, I had a little knee-jerk reaction over here because that word is a trigger for me.
I do too.
Because
Every time I hear that word, it's like,
yeah,
ugh.
it's always, we have to do it incrementally. Sometimes it's going to take 5 to 6 years. And I'm like, why? We got the majority. We have the people writing the policy. We have a bill. We get it out of committee. We have the power to move policy right to the Senate and the House floor and have it called and have it voted on in both chambers and sent to the governor's office for a signature. So why we have to do this incrementally? And why is it taking us so many years? And the reason is you got a lot of deals getting cut. You got a lot of kickbacks that go on. People that are benefiting in ways that profit they pocket. And we know we live in a capitalist society where profit is what's important. Profit over people. That has always been the issue in this country. And especially when you talk about criminal justice. Because we know what this stems from. This is slave patrol. When you look at who's incarcerated in every state in this nation, they are predominantly black and brown people. And I can tell you one thing that shocked me. I went into the prisons, and this was early on when I first went into the prisons, and Commissioner Simple, God bless him, good friend of mine, he was the commissioner at the time. And they had just opened up a reintegration center, and this was where, they were selecting certain incarcerated people from the population that would get moved to this unit, and they would be able to go out and work and come back, and they had access to a wealth of things that the rest of the population didn't. And when I went on tour to take a look at it, and I walked in, I was like, I didn't know it was this many white people in prison. Because this program was predominantly the incarcerated people that were participating in this were white men. I'm like, and this is what happens. And that's why I call it fluff stuff, because it sounds good. Right? And it's all about the language and how you present it. You don't want to offend anybody. What about the people that have been offended all their lives? What about the people that are offended simply because of the color of their skin? I mean, like the things we have to deal with. And then you talk about being offended by doing what's right. So I say, yes, there is hope. And we just have to get the right people in the building. And until we have the right people in the building, in the majority, and in the collective working together to use their authority and power that the people outside have endowed them with, we have to do this work on the outside. And I call it outside interference. The folks in this room, the constituents, the people that are voting. Voting is not enough. You have to hold lawmakers' feet to the fire. You have to pay attention. You have to understand policy. You have to understand process, right? And I think part of the onus is on the lawmaker. We really should be out here, and I would get pushback when I talk about coming back to educate the community. I get told, you just need to worry about getting reelected. Well, I never had to worry about being reelected because I was in the building doing the work on behalf of the people, and they knew that. And if that's what you're doing, you never have to worry about being reelected. That's right. When you're working on behalf of the folks that have trusted you and endowed you with the power to go in there and be their voice. Because they're not voiceless. They are people that have been silenced. They are people that are being ignored. And they are people who are seen in other folks' eyes as non-factors, not important. They don't matter. And until we, and I'm talking about population, constituents, not elected folks, until we, the people, take our power back and occupy these spaces and rattle the cage, nothing's changing. So you got to get in the ring, and you got to join the fight, and you got to take the licks and the bruises, because I couldn't have lasted another 10 years in that building. And that's the other thing I'll say, and then I'll be quiet. You got to pay attention to who's there forever, because let me tell you something. You can't do the work the way I was doing the work. I quit my full-time job to do this work. That's how serious I was about it. And that's my faith at work, because I had to count on God to help me pay bills that I didn't see the money coming in to do. But he did. And I was able to get done what I did. So we need more people that are willing to walk by faith, willing to do the work that's required to get it done, and to get together. And we ain't got to like each other. We don't. We need to love one another, though. Because when we love one another, we don't do anything to harm one another.
Right.
So let's get together and let's go to the building, city level, state level, and the federal level. All three branches of government need to be held accountable. But I will say this, politics is local, and you need to start with your local politics. Your Democratic town committees are running the show. The machine is running the show. Get to know the process and understand what your role is and what you can do to have impact to help make the change that we all want to see.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's I take a lot of hope from the concrete victories, things like, you know, a person getting out of jail or getting time off of their sentence, or even like some of the stuff that Ken does when they're hiding the evidence and you fight for years, and then finally the judge says they have to hand over the evidence and you get that document that's the secret that they've been trying to keep for all this time. That's those little concrete victories give me hope. And sometimes some of the things that are done have a bigger impact than are expected. Some of the laws that Representative Porter passed have had such a monumental effect on people who I've had an opportunity to meet, or I've worked with, or I've worked on the laws. And that gives me hope. And then also just the having a community of people, because you're not going to be able to do it alone. But it's not a big group of people you need.
Right.
It's a small group. You know, especially if you start at that local level. I mean, this group here could just completely overrun the whatever town committee of this town or the local surrounding towns, right? But the truth is that we all don't live in the same town in this room. You need to find your local community or your professional community. Like when a really tough judge really does something that I find to be so bad and wrong, evil, wicked, I can't even say the name of the judge. I can call Ken, and he can at least commiserate with me and tell me something good that happened. So finding those concrete victories, finding your community, those are the things that help give me hope. And even though I don't like the incremental change, sometimes if you're shrewd, you can get things done by being a little sneaky. Everyone thinks it's incremental, but it's really revolutionary. And that's been a lot of the things that Barbara and Representative Porter have championed in the legislature, is that, they didn't even see it coming.
Thank you. The reason I always have a problem with incremental is because I look at, we have been in this country for over 400 years, and the same fight that my ancestors had is the same fight we're having now. And I think it's because we just accept incremental changes. It's time to be bold. Stop knocking at the door, asking them, can I come in? It's time to pick your feet up and kick the door in. And I think that's where we are. I think we should have been there a long time ago, but by now we have to know that. We can no longer stand by and wait for other people to fight our fight. We have to fight this fight ourselves. Every person in this room, like Miss Bowen, was it Bowen? Okay, Bowen Lewis. Like she said, when you leave here, don't let this just be a feel-good night. Let this be a night that pushes you to say, you know what? I'm going to get more involved in the work that needs to happen. And one of the things I want to mention as we talk about the work that needs to happen, we have to show up. We cannot be sitting around waiting for one person to go up to Hartford to do all this fighting for us. Because I'm telling you, it'll kill you. And so I'm begging people, please leave here with some kind of action in your head that I'm going to do something different that I haven't done before. Next Tuesday, there's going to be an event at the Capitol. It's going to be 1 hour. I always try to respect people's time. 1 hour, we're going to have people, advocates, families, legislators, whoever, to come there and talk about what this legislative session has been like. Talk about the wins, the challenges, the barriers to getting things done. We have to let legislators know that we don't like the job that you're doing. And so if we don't make a demand, they're never going to change anything. So please, get involved. You have my brochure on the table. You have my email. Check us out on Instagram and know what we're doing. Get involved, please, because I am getting tired. And the only thing that's keeping me in here as long as I have is the thought of me just stepping back and nobody pick up that torch. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. So I'm trying to be able to live my life, but I also know I need people to stand with me, not call me and text me and email me and push me to do something. Get out and do something yourself. And that's the call that I have for everybody in this room. Just do something. Even if it's just write a opinion piece. Do something, please. Because I can't fight this forever. And we have a lot of work done. We haven't even scratched the surface of what needs to happen in Connecticut if we're ever going to have people treated humanely. Ken, did you have your hand up to say something? No. Oh, okay. Okay, so while I'm at it, I want to talk about something that's really important to me right now, and it's about strip searching. We have a strip search policy, and I also put a couple of little handouts up here for people to get so you can have some background on it. But in Connecticut, and probably across the nation, because America just seems to have this fetish with seeing people nude. I want to stop that. I want to put an end to it because I know the psychological harm that's done. We've had press conferences around it. We've had public hearings. We've had people come up and talk about what it was like being stripped and how they've been out of prison 10, 20 years, and it's still painful to talk about. They still get brought to tears talking about. So that shows how long-lasting that this pain is. And I want it to stop. In Connecticut, we keep talking about getting body scanners. Okay, we'll get those one day because for the last 4 years, that's all we've been saying. Every session come up, yeah, another promise to get body scanners. So we're on that promise again. To me, that I can't. I don't know. I'm from a different cloth. That's all I can say. I cannot wait for you to get your body scanners. Every day you are harming people more and more and more. We could stop that harm right now. And you don't need a budget to do it. All you have to have is compassionate heart and humanity to know that what you're doing to people, we need to stop. But I need you guys, all of you in this room and more, to stand up to our legislators and say, no, body scanners are great at some point if you ever get them. But right now you can stop this harm that you're doing to people and it don't cost a dime. All he needs to do is look at the policies that he had. Like we asked for a report on how many strip searches were done just last year. 1 year, over 350,000 strip searches. And I don't even want to describe how disgusting they are, because don't think it's just take your clothes off and that's it. It's very disgusting what they do. We've actually had correctional officers, I think they must have took it home with them, because they've actually gotten arrested for voyeurism. They go in stores and watch women undress and stuff. So the sickness is not only happening to the people that they're stripping, but it's happening to the people who are doing it. And so I really need people, if you don't do nothing but write an opinion piece, stand with us when we do something. You don't even have to say anything if you don't want to, but stand with us and make a demand, because these are our people they're doing it to. And those people, every single time they have to go through that strip search, they talk about it's like being sexually violated. And we, but in the state of Connecticut and probably across this nation, are continuing to let that happen. So please get on board, get more information about strip searching. And I'm going to read a little thing from this pamphlet right here. And it says, torturers have perfected ways of inflicting grave pain without ever leaving a mark on the flesh. Forced nakedness and sexual humiliation constitute torture and cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment. It's important to understand that while physical wounds will heal in time, the mental trauma that's induced is much more difficult to treat. Some traumas people may never heal from. So if you could just, I know it's not happening to you, but if you could just imagine having to go in a room with a bunch of people, a bunch of COs standing around you and being made to undress in front of them so that they can look up your butt. Like, what are you looking for? I'm not constipated. Why are you up there? There's something wrong with people that have a need to do this. And we need to challenge that. We do not need to be inside those walls just accepting this is what has to happen to us. And those of us who it's not happening to, please stand up and fight back against this sexual violence that's happening to people. And so I will give you, there's a little flyers up here so you can read a little bit about it. But I want to read something that, and then I'm going to have Alice come speak on it because I'm working with him to see what we can do beyond waiting around for the commissioner and legislators or whoever to put an end to this.
Miss Barbara, I just want to interject real quick, and I want people to be mindful what she is talking about is not something that just happens to adults in the criminal justice system. This is happening to our youth at Manson Youth Institution.
Right.
So keep that in mind. This is being done to children.
Your children.
And we tell our children when someone touches, we give them the talk. But these children don't have those same protections. Mm-hmm. This is being inflicted on them as well.
And can I add that it doesn't work?
No.
Because I represent the estate of a 26-year-old man who died of a fentanyl overdose while he was in prison. It was during a COVID lockdown. So how did the drugs come in?
I gave you that little handout.
The guards smuggle them in, but it's astonishing to me that they go through this ritual humiliation of it's a degradation, and it's designed to break people so that they're compliant and but it doesn't work because the drugs still get in, and the people aren't the ones who are like it takes imagine you're an opiate addict and you're going to prison or you're going to court one day and you don't know that you're going to be sentenced to jail that day or sent to jail that day. Your bond will be revoked or something. You're not smuggling something. You didn't take precautions to smuggle it in. They're still going to strip search you. Mm-hmm. And it's astonishing. And I deal with the repercussions of it. And I think Alex has had some cases of this nature as well.
Well, yeah.
Guards.
To the guards.
Guards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually have a flyer, a little handout there for people to look at
The sentences that they get.
Huh?
Yeah, they get a slap on the wrist.
Ivy Lee's out there, and I always have to recognize that she's such a master at this stuff. Well, I asked her one day to put together something for me to show officers being arrested for bringing in drugs. And I did it because I met with the Black and Hispanic Caucus, and they asked questions about it. And I said, well, officers are bringing drugs into prison. It didn't just start. It's been going on forever. So they asked me, they said, well, do you have any names? So I asked Ivy Lee, I said, Ivy Lee, can you put together a little paper with the names?
Because one of them, she used to wake up the incarcerated people at night to sleep
Yeah.
with them, and they felt pressured. So that's not on there. She got arrested, but they let her go.
And that's what I want you to notice on the little handout is the disposition of these people that have been bringing drugs into the system. Many times they're getting probation, they're getting suspended sentences, they're getting their charges dropped. And so why would they stop bringing these drugs into the system? This has been like a side hustle for them. The last one who got arrested actually set up a Cash App account. So he didn't have to have his hands dirty going to get the money from the people to buy the drugs. So it's really a serious matter. And for us to be putting people through these degrading experiences and pretend that it's about keeping drugs out of the system is horrible. And, okay, 1 minute. And so I want you guys, there's some down here, I want you to actually look and see these people that worked in the system that was selling drugs, and look at the dispositions they get. If I was selling drugs, I'd probably get 10, 20 years. They're getting suspended sentences, probation, programs. You would, absolutely. Yeah. So that's why it's very important to me. And then on top of that, I've been campaigning for this young man, J. Allen Jones. Probably a lot of you have heard about him. He was a young man who had a mental health crisis. Now, when you have a mental health crisis and you're in Garner, where they have the seriously mentally ill, if you have, say you have a bad night, so the counselor says, well, you need to go in under behavioral observation or something. So that's what he had to do. So here he is, he's already, mind is messed up. And they take him in a room, they shackle his hands, they shackle his feet, and then they take his clothes off him, and they tell him to get on his knees so they can do a search. And he said, I can't do that. And they said, well, you're gonna do it or we're gonna force it. And he said, again, I can't do it. Well, he left out of that room dead because of a strip search, a degrading strip search that he didn't need to even go through. Why do we have a policy on our books? Because it is policy. Why do we have a policy on our books that if you have a mental health crisis, you have to go through what they call this controlled strip search? Who would ever want to admit that something's wrong with them mentally if they know this is what they got to go through? It's the same thing with visits. Who would want to visit knowing when you come back from your visit, you got to go through this? So now they got video visit. So a lot of people are saying, well, I'll go for the video visit because I can't keep going through this humiliating experience. So what do they do now? They just recently passed a policy that even with a video visit, you can still be strip searched. Now we as a people have got to say enough of this madness. We have to do that. Not one person, not two people, but we as a collective. Where we're gonna have big meetings and big rallies and all that stuff, let it be about some of these things that's hurting people that can't even speak. They have no choice. But when they say get on your knees, you're getting on your knees. And you're gonna do exactly what they tell you to do. And for what? And so that's another reason that I'm really pushing this. But before I talk too much, I wanna turn it over to Alice because I'm not satisfied with just going to the commissioner and waiting for him to do the right thing. So I'm looking for a lawsuit. I want to bring this to the Supreme Court. I actually want to take it to the highest court eventually. But right now, incrementally, I'll start at the state court. But I intend to take this to the Supreme Court to put an end to this nonsense. And Alex is going to be the man that's going to help me get there.
So every day in Connecticut, mostly black and brown men are ordered to strip, squat, cough, expose their genitals simply because they need to go to school, because they need to go to the doctor, because they want to speak to or receive a family member's visit. The DOC logged over 250,000 of these forced displays of nudity during the last year. And essentially, every single one of them could have been avoided by the implementation of proper safety protocols within the prisons, which the Department of Correction has not shown any interest in implementing. This is because the purpose of these searches, they don't work at finding contraband. Obviously, less than 0.01% of these hundreds of thousands of searches find any contraband. They do work at instilling fear and terror and deterring people from doing things like going to the doctor or going to school or visiting their family, which makes the job of a correctional officer easier when people are forced to just sit in their cell and play chess or play cards or watch a TV show. And so on March 25th, 2018, J. Allen Jones lost his life because he refused to undertake a strip search. And that homicide by Connecticut prison guards was on video camera. More than 7 years later, the citizens of Connecticut and the world have not been allowed to watch Connecticut's George Floyd moment. George Floyd minutes, 9 minutes, 10 minutes, where the oxygen was cut off to his brain because he refused a strip search. Now, the Department of Correction estimated, in an attempt to stop legislation that was very incremental, that it would cost $4.2 million to purchase 26 body scanners for their correctional facilities across the state of Connecticut. But consider this, in 2007, almost 20 years ago, Connecticut paid $2.5 million in a class action lawsuit because they did strip searches of everyone who entered local jail lockups. Just months ago, they paid $3.75 million for a custody death of Robbie Talbot, which again began with excessive force over compliance with correctional officer orders in the context of a shower. Every day that we keep going with these, on average, 643 forced displays of nudity per day, when is the next incident going to occur? And we still haven't seen what's going to happen with J. Allen Jones's case. Now, the UN Mandela rules state that, according to international law, intrusive searches, including the strip searches which are under the DOC policy, should be undertaken, quote, only if absolutely necessary, unquote. And prison systems are urged to develop technological alternatives. So here we have Connecticut, where demonstrably the cost of changing this policy would be a fraction of just the incidents that are created by fights and non-compliance over this current policy, let alone the human cost, let alone the trauma that it's imposing, let alone the fact that this is what weeds out who wants to be a correctional officer, and only these perverted people who want to do this want to stay, and those who find this unnecessarily and cruel are forced out. This is our choice. This is state-sanctioned sexual humiliation and assault. So we will be bringing a lawsuit, but don't expect the courts to come and save our wicked system. They're here to implement the system. So we can use this lawsuit to bring attention to how irrational, illogical, inhumane, cruel, and terrible that every 2 minutes in the state of Connecticut, a black or brown man is forced to strip, squat, and cough for no reason, knowing full well that $4 million could eliminate this state-sanctioned terrorism for years to come. That's our case.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to move on, but I just wanted to read one of the, because I've been sending Alex different things as I try to figure out how we're gonna do this. I looked at one of the policies that we have on our books, and it's 53A, 73A, sexual assault in the 4th degree. Now, I'm trying to apply that to what they're doing to people in prison, and it seems pretty much like that should apply to people, what they're putting people through. It says some victims are deemed by law to be unable to provide consent to sexual contact in certain situations. 53A, 73A makes it, which is a statute, makes it illegal for a person to have contact with the intimate parts of another person not married to that actor against their will for the purpose of sexual gratification or humiliating or degrading the victim. And that's where I think we fit in. And it says sexual assault in the 4th degree are defined, the intimate parts are genital area, the groin, anus, buttocks, breasts of the victim. It also says that instances where people don't have the ability to fight back are when they are confined in a jail or detained in a hospital or institution, and the actor has supervisory or disciplinary authority over that victim. Now, I'm thinking that we could probably make that work in saying that what correctional officers are doing every single day inside of our prisons, they're committing sexual assault in the 4th degree. And we're going to start with that. Oh. I tell you, I'm cut from a different cloth. I'm always looking for how to get something done. So we're going to get it done. I always think about the fact that when people tell me, when I come up with something, like when I said I wasn't going to arrest the Northern got shut down, people said, oh, they'll never shut that down. They need that place, so, they'll never happen. They said we never pass the Protect Act. When our act that says that you have to treat people better, stop the isolation, caging people and all that stuff. And they said, oh, that's not going anywhere. You think the COs are probably laughing at you. I said, let them laugh. Protect Act was passed. So when you tell, right, twice. So when you tell me that it won't happen, all I can say it hadn't happened yet. Doesn't mean it won't happen. And it's only gonna happen when we get off our knees, straighten up our backs, and say, I demand that this stop. I demand that you stop abusing our people, our children, our family members, our loved ones. Stop abusing them because you're causing harm that they may never overcome. And then we have to live with those broken pieces. Not those COs, not the commissioner, but we, the families who love them, have to live with that harm. So, I'm gonna catch my breath.